movie Thor and popularized the idea of being worthy to wield a great power. In the movie, it's actually Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. So, according to Odin's enchantment to the hammer, whoever is worthy will be the one to wield the power of Thor. I see the relevance in Christianity because whoever is worthy will be the one to be able to wield the power of God. I'll talk about that later. Welcome to day 4 of our daily Bible devotions. This week we have been exploring the epistles of Peter. And in his first and second epistles, or first and second letters, Peter has been talking about not just about hope, he's been talking about holiness. And I dare say that to be worthy is to be holy. In the movie, it talks about worthy, 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 and you can translate that in Christianity as being holy. Because we also talk about worth in Christianity. We worship God because He is worthy. We worship God because He is holy. So I argue that to be worthy is to be holy. But who is worthy? Who is holy? No one is. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 14 to 15, Peter said, "As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance. But as He who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy." So most likely, Peter is quoting here Jesus, because Jesus said this in the Sermon on the Mount. But Jesus also quoted from the Old Testament. But when Jesus repeated this, He's not just quoting from the Old Testament. He's reminding that it is His calling, that you shall be holy, for I am holy. He's referring to Himself as well, being the one who is holy, being the one who is worthy. Now, because He is holy, He is calling His followers now to be holy as well. But we all know that we cannot be holy. We cannot be perfect. That's a very tall order. In fact, it's not just difficult, it's impossible. We cannot do that. But Jesus made that possible on the cross. What He did on the cross is that He exchanged His holiness by granting it to us and then taking our sins and putting it on the cross Himself. Because we cannot do it, so He died for our sins so that He could give us His righteousness. And that is the way that followers of God, followers of Jesus can be holy and can be righteous and can be worthy. Not because of their own worth, not because of their own righteousness, but because of Jesus' righteousness and Jesus' holiness. Peter talked about holiness in his first and second letters. There's holiness in submitting to authorities. Read the epistle of Peter. There's holiness in submitting to authorities, holiness in marriage, holiness in pursuing righteousness, holiness in being stewards of God's grace. In both first and second letter, it's all there. But especially in his second letter, where Peter actually rebuked Christian leaders and warned them of false teachings. In fact, he indicated that these people have been following false teachings because they have been frustrated in waiting for the promises of God. And he even exhorted them in his second letter that they have to supplement their faith with virtue. Virtue, holiness. If you have faith, then you should be holy. It leads us to the principle that we want to take a look at. Jesus sacrificed Himself so that we can be holy like Him. Again, Jesus sacrificed Himself so that we can be holy like Him. Like we mentioned, we cannot have virtue, we cannot have holiness and righteousness on our own. But we are able to have that when we follow Jesus, because He is the one that empowers us. He is the one who grants us the ability to pursue virtue, to pursue righteousness, because He is giving us His own righteousness. But all this talk about holiness, maybe you were asking, why would you want to be holy? I mean, have you ever think about it? Have you ever wished that you didn't know what is right so that at least you would be excused from doing what is wrong? Because I did once upon a time when I was a new Christian and I started learning about the burden, the weight of following Christ, the weight of following God. I realized that it's really difficult to follow God because I had to keep doing the right things, and And they're difficult because sometimes I wish that I didn't know what is right so that I would be excused to do what is wrong. But eventually, as I kept on walking with Christ, as I kept on reading the Bible, God made me realize that there's so much more when I stay with Him. There's so much more when I choose holiness and righteousness. In the movie Thor, to be worthy is to wield the power of thunder, right? So in a similar way, in Christianity, in reality, to be holy is to be able to wield the power of God. To be holy is to be a steward of His grace, to be a steward of God's grace, as Peter mentioned, to be set apart for Him, to be a powerful weapon for Him, to be able to minister to other people, to be able to be an instrument of His grace, of His love, an instrument of righteousness. Come to think of it, isn't that nice? That you'll be able to share God's love, you'll be able to share God's generosity, you'll be able to share God's truth to other people, and God will use you, God will bless other people through you. That's what it means to be an instrument, to be a conduit of God's power. And God can only use you if you are pursuing holiness. Question is, will you take this privilege, this offer, to display the power of God in your life? To display God's holiness by pursuing holiness and righteousness.